Well, hey, welcome to A Valid Answer Mondays, right? With Scott and Marshall, your capitalist conservative pastor and your socialist liberal atheist. Yep. Coming to you every Monday at 4 o'clock and also on Sundays at 5. You can find us on Kerncast, Valid Answer. You can check us out on, follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube, subscribe to our podcast. You can search for it as Valid Answer on iTunes Podcast. We're here on a Monday. After we were close to killing each other yesterday. I think if you guys want to know what happened,
I wasn't going to kill him, but he was going to kill me.
Yeah, go back and you were probably going to drop a guillotine on me or something like that. But so you guys can check that out. I'm going to load up something here on the page here. Tell me what's going on. What's going on with you today?
Well, today. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I wasn't expecting a personal question.
Oh, sorry.
Other than, hey, work and it's Monday.
Yep.
And what do you do? I'm sure a lot of you folks are out there. You're still working. Hey, you only got about 1 hour left. Hopefully,
it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Our podcast helps you power through that last hour. And I am ready to rock and roll on today's topic, which I think a lot of you will find kind of interesting.
Josh Gunderson says that there was at least some heavy hyperbole yesterday, so I'm sure there was.
Well, there was a little bit, but at the end of the day, I think I invite people to research these topics for themselves.
Yeah.
I don't expect you to take my word for it. I'm not always a subject matter expert. I have a couple degrees, but that doesn't mean I'm not wrong. And as you will sometimes see on the show, and as anybody who watched the show yesterday, if I feel I'm wrong, I will change my position live on the show, because I think that's what you should do when you realize that you're wrong. You should be a big enough person that you can admit when you are wrong about something, change your mind, change your opinion, and then move on.
People are looking at our title. I titled it talking about the violent left, and they want to know, are you talking about the New Zealand shooter? Did you guys read the manifesto? I mean, you can address that if you want. No, I don't.
No, because that is today's topic.
Yeah, it's the violent left, but no, we're not talking that he is part of the violent left. Not necessarily. That's not what we were aiming at, but I'm sure it'll come up.
Yeah. Okay.
Increased violence in the left. Yeah.
So, okay. Well, hey,
Josh,
let's get into it. Let's get into it. So,
Josh, you're a wonderful follower of the show. Thank you so much for always being part of what's going on. I saw some pictures that you had posted on Facebook of some guitar stuff that you had, and I just always remembered in high school how you're always playing guitar and all. It's just pretty cool. Going back.
And then Michael here. What's Michael having to say?
He's partially teasing you, but
partially teasing.
Yeah,
Michael wants to be on the show sometime. I actually had a live debate with him. You just like that. You just agree. You have not met Michael.
It doesn't matter.
Oh no, it matters.
Oh, okay, all right. No, because I will draw the line at some. There's a couple of your followers that I'm like, no, they're just trolls. No, I'm not going to have a troll on show.
Well,
not to mention any names.
He says, "Oh, I
excuse me."
But anyway. So we'll see. Michael is from Boston.
Oh, so having him on the show might be a little difficult.
No, I think he can do it. I think he's up late enough, and he says he's not as bad as I am. So there you go. But anyway, we'll settle on something, and then we'll have to figure out a way to patch him in. And you might have to patch me in come a few months from now.
Oh my gosh!
Not for sure, but I might be relocating.
Wow!
And if I do, but
that'll be an interesting new way to do the show.
Michael is friends with me and a fellow admin in another group that I have. It's called the Thunderdome Debate Group on Facebook. And the purpose of the group, and it's a new group that we just recently created.
That apparently I was not invited to.
Well, you can join if you like. We actually had a fantastic discussion on there last week from a couple people, but the point of the group is to do video debate. And there's a way to do video discussions and debate on Facebook Live.
Where they're not together, but there's side by side.
And you do the whole side by side split screen thing and all of that. And the thing is, the Thunderdome thing is you challenge a person to a formal debate. The debate is actually moderated or judged. Wow. And then the loser gets kicked out of the group unless they make a video and concede and tell you how badly they lost.
Wow.
Yes, there's a little pride in there. You know, there's some stakes.
But who decides who was the winner of the argument?
The
moderator?
judges. The judges.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, and you get to pick some judges or whatever. You know, the admins may judge, but ultimately,
what's the bias of the judges?
Well, that's the thing is, you know, hopefully the judges will be impartial and judge the debate on its merit and not use their personal biases. But that's kind of impossible. Mm-hmm. So you either, you know,
I'm saying, so in that, how do you pick the judges?
Well, right now we're just picking from our little pool of admins, and most people know what the admins' biases are. And so if each side picks one and then you get a third, might be random. We haven't quite figured out how we're going to do that. Again, the group is new. We've only had a couple of debates, but we're hoping to do weekly formal debates, and it'll be very interesting.
Wow. Sounds cool.
So there you go. All right. So, yes, it's called the Thunderdome Debate Group on Facebook.
So people can search for that and find that?
They should be able to search for it and find it. I think it's a public group, so good luck. But, yeah, there's a lot of people on there already.
Gotcha.
So there you go.
Well, here we are the day after St. Patty's Day. I'm not wearing any green, but you don't get to pinch me this time.
Yeah, well, hey, I got away. You forgot to roundhouse kick me.
Yeah, I guess once the day ended, I lost my ability to actually be able to pinch you back because in case you didn't see it yesterday, he falsely accused me of not wearing green.
And he had these green shoes,
like bright lime green shoes on that.
But to quote Morgan Freeman in Shawshank Redemption, how often do you look at a man's shoes?
Very true, okay. Very true.
All right, so let's talk about this
violent
left, because
violent left.
we have so many fun things to talk about, but we do need to get into our topic. And well, what do you want to say on that? To
open up, what concerns me the most about the rhetoric, because I don't know that there's actually any. I mean, there's probably a few. But actual acts of violence from the left, I don't have any specific, accounts of that. What I'm more talking about is the rhetoric of the left has been getting more violent. That there's been that the left has had a tendency to start calling for violence more than I've seen in the past. It didn't stand out to me that the left seemed to call out for violence, and it just seems like and I feel that the basis of that is the idea of that certain ideologies have to be stopped in their tracks. That like you say, you like to say that capitalism is violence. You like to say that certain things, that certain non-violent actions, that simple thoughts and ideologies can be considered violence. So if you are a person who believes that person's thoughts and that person's beliefs equal violence, then you are more likely to take actual violent action and to call for actual violent action against someone's thoughts and beliefs. I'm from the side that, words cannot physically hurt you. So words cannot be violent, that they cannot physically hurt you. So if someone says words to you and you believe that the appropriate response for someone's words is to physically get violent, I think there's a problem with you.
Well, you do understand that there's a thing called fighting words, right? And fighting words are not protected by the First Amendment.
Oh, I understand that.
And you understand that you cannot create a clear and present danger through your speech, such as shouting fire in a crowded theater. So, did we just lose our thing?
No, we're still on. Okay. We're still feeding here.
Because it went black on there. Okay, yeah. Sorry, folks. I just noticed something, and I don't want to leave you out of the discussion because this discussion is going to go on for a bit. But, like Michael says, unless it's a threat. But words and beliefs translate into actions down the road oftentimes. And I don't know of anybody on the left who is arguing we should prosecute or punish people for thought crimes, which is what you're describing.
No. What I'm talking about is people having things thrown at them and punched in the face because they're wearing a red hat. That violent actions happening against somebody because they're wearing something that represents something that person is. So they believe that the appropriate answer for that person wearing a red hat is to chase them down and beat them up. That is never appropriate. Or do you think that that's appropriate?
No, I don't think that's appropriate.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who are like saying, I'm not talking about, the laws. I'm just saying people on the left who are like, they will physically go. I've watched videos online of somebody physically going and knocking that person's hat off or shoving them because, or ripping the sun out of their hat, getting physically violent with someone because of that person's beliefs and their display of the belief. And I see that, and it might just be an echo chamber, but I see that happening more and more against conservatives, against people on the right, by people on the left. You have so many videos online of people's displays of, pro-life displays being destroyed by college students who, who are taking physical action, destroying property and being violent and shouting hateful words at people who have a right to be there just because of their opinion. And they're getting violent because of someone else's opinion. And that's very troubling. Mm-hmm. That's very troubling that people are actually taking violent steps against others simply because of what they say or what they believe.
Do you, just in the name of fairness and balance here, and I don't really want to get into this, but I do want to throw this out there. Do you see any violence coming from the right?
I'm sure that that there are people. Yes, I would say that there's violence happening on the right. Mm-hmm. I think that the Charlotte thing could be an example.
Well, the person drove the car, or whatever, into the crowd.
Into the crowd. That's a violent action. Whether or not they say that were being attacked in their car, I don't know. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If I was in my car and there was a mob of people around me and they started trying to break the windows to get into my car and get me, I would probably drive over them to escape. But I don't think that's what that person did. I think that's what the person tried to claim, but I don't think that's what that person did. I think that person was trying to hit people.
So for clarity, neither Scott nor I advocate the harm of any individual simply because they are ideologically different from you. In fact, the entire purpose of this show is to demonstrate that two people on opposite ends of the ideological spectrum, both on economics, philosophy, religion, and so on, can actually sit next to each other and have a discussion, have a difficult conversation without it breaking into a fistfight.
And yesterday, if you saw yesterday's episode, if you didn't go back and watch yesterday's episode near the end of it, it got pretty heated in here because I felt that you were starting to go that direction with some posts that you were saying that you were advocating the idea of, hey, maybe violence is the right answer to these people's belief system. And even in a discussion that we were talking about that was pre-show, talking about, Nazis just need to be punched in the face. And the idea, it's like, how far do you go? When do you find it acceptable that you can take violent action against someone who has not personally taken violent action to you? And if you can say, well, their beliefs are violence against me, then that opens the door to anybody can say, well, that person's beliefs I consider violence against me, and I'm going to defend myself against that. And it opens up a floodgate of people to say, well, then I can justify my own evilness because I can say that person was evil first.
Well, at what point do you say, because one of the things I hear from the extreme left is that this call for calm, this call for civility is actually playing into the hands of the right or the establishment or whatever, that it's perpetuating harm in the status quo because you're calling for calm and you're calling for civility and you're saying don't be violent.
Which is always the best answer.
Okay,
you make really bad decisions when you're emotional. I don't know if it's
always the best answer.
Do you make good decisions when you're emotional?
Nobody ever does.
Nobody ever does. So stay calm and don't be emotional.
Okay, but
that is literally what's being said.
Right, but at what point do you go from being calm and rational to saying, holy cow, I have to take physical action to defend myself or those who depend on me for whatever reason? At what point do you transition from peaceful protest to maybe it's got to get violent? Maybe it's going to be what happened in Lexington and Concord, whatever they call that shot heard around the world time. Or Warsaw Uprising. Certainly, I don't think anybody is going to fault the Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto for fighting against the Nazis who were preparing literally to exterminate them.
But at the time, the Nazis were already being physically, they were phically throwing them out.
They had been for a long time.
And they had been. So that's a defense against something that's physically already happening. Of course, I would never disparage someone for physically getting violent in defense of someone who is physically getting violent with them.
Well, here's the thing.
I do not believe you can. I do not believe you can get physically violent against rhetoric.
Okay, that's fine. But here's something I just want to throw out food for thought. And again, I'm not going to condone any kind of actual violence, but I'm going to say this. At one time, the Nazi Party is what they call 40 brown shirts. There's about 40 guys wearing a uniform, marching down the streets of Munich or Berlin or wherever they were in Germany. And had people figured out, hey, these guys really have this dangerous ideology, and we're going to go beat the crap out of them, and done that, that might have been the end of the Nazi Party. That might have been the end of Adolf Hitler before he even got started, frankly.
But the argument also is, if they had known that, they also could have gone and talked with them and gotten to know them and changed their minds. You immediately jump into that the answer is only violence. Shares more about you than it does about them.
Do you think that the Nazi brown shirts, who were very disaffected, obviously they were already radical.
Yeah.
Were ever liable to be persuaded by reason? I mean, in my estimation, these people are probably pretty far beyond reason.
Yes, but I believe, again, because I'm a Christian, because I know that it is a personal relationship with Jesus Christ that brings salvation, not a religious action or a following of certain rules or anything like that. I believe that inviting someone into your home, getting to know them, seeing them as a human being, treating them as a human being, having those discussions, I think that can penetrate the heart. And I know that that's happened with you and me, that it can, no matter how ideologically, but if you see the other person as a human and you treat them as a human and you spend time with them individually, I believe you can begin to break down their walls. I believe you can do that. And that's what God calls, that's what Jesus calls us to do, that's why it says, love your neighbor, to reach and do those things for them and be in. And I believe that is a better answer than simply saying, well, they can't be turned, so let's get violent.
That's a movie idea. You and I go back in a time machine to 1920s Germany and two different approaches to meeting Adolf Hitler.
But again, well, here's the thing.
What do you do?
Because all you're going to do is make martyrs.
Well,
all your action's going to do is make martyrs. Because again, we're going to go back and I'm going to analogize what you're saying, that you want to drop a bomb on this terrorist.
Well, actually, I'm opposed to doing that.
Hold on, general, but I'm saying in the equivalence of, you want to say what they're doing is wrong, so I'm going to get violent with them. So let's take the argument to the other direction. America says, here's a terrorist, we're going to get violent with him. Your argument is that when America does that, we create more terrorists.
Right.
So I'm applying that back. You go back and do that, and people don't see what you see, and they just see you as the person beating them up. You're going to create more brown shirts. I believe your action
that is a fantastic argument from you. In debate, we call that a turn. You've used my own argument in my own words to defeat me, and I will accept that defeat if you will accept that dropping bombs on terrorists tends to create more terrorists.
Well, here's the thing. All I did was use your own weapon against you. I don't have to agree with that weapon to still shut down your argument.
What do you do?
That's what I'm saying. But again, I don't have to believe it. All I have to do is turn your argument against you. It doesn't matter if I believe it or not.
Right.
I'm just saying, you're the one making this argument over here, but are refusing to make the same argument over there. I'm calling you on your inconsistency. I'm not saying either one.
We'll let our viewers decide how to rule on that one. But anyway, okay, so let's talk about the left, because that's one of the first and biggest issues that I see a lot of people getting wrong is they talk about the left like it's a monolithic thing, just like a lot of people on the right tend to talk about the right. I'm sorry, a lot of people on the left tend to talk about the right as a big, huge, monolithic thing. And there's a lot of variation, a lot of styration, if you will, a lot of different layers. Obviously the right is made up of different groups. Now, I think you obviously identify with the right. That doesn't mean that you are a fascist or a Nazi or any of those things.
Right.
You are your own brand of conservative. I don't even know that we could call you a Republican per se, because while I think you identify with Republican politics more often than not, I don't believe you would agree with all
I'm not even a member of the Republican Party.
Exactly.
Years ago, I got out registered. Of it. Yeah.
Likewise, I am not affiliated with the Democrats. I'm registered independent or non-affiliated or whatever that is.
Yeah.
I don't actually have a party affiliation. On the left, you have what are called Democrats, okay? And these are your Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden supporting mainstream Democrats. These people are actually centrist. They're not even leftist. They're still corporatist. They're still capitalist. And in my personal estimation, they are really not much different than Republicans, except for on a few wedge issues, such as
social issues. Yeah,
they're
very socially left.
Exactly.
They're not fiscally, or however you want to say it.
They still take that corporate money, and they're very pro-corporation, and they're not really doing much for the little guy.
Yep. And
even their advocacy on immigration, on things like abortion, which might be the only thing I ever really see them throw down on, any of that stuff, they're actually pretty darn close to Republicans, and neither side really cares to solve the issue because they get a lot of political mileage out of those issues without having to address the real issues that face, middle America in particular. So to me, Democrats are not on the left. They're really in the center. And they're actually quite close to Republicans on most things that matter to me at least. Now, to the left of Democrats, you have progressives. Now, progressives tend to be more liberal, and they tend to talk a lot more about social issues. And those are people who are probably more like Elizabeth Warren, who would probably be the model progressive that's out there. Now, to the left of her, there's another group, and those are your social Democrats, and that's Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and that group. And by the way, that's where I fall on the political spectrum personally, even though, I will post pictures of myself, as a commie or whatever.
Yeah.
But the reality is I'm actually
you show me that picture. You want that to be your new
profile
picture.
Yeah. Michael actually created that, just so you know. He's watching right now, but we'll deal with that later. But the thing is that's another level of leftism. And then further to the left, you have people who are pretty much communists. They're socialists. They're not full-on communists, but they are socialists of varying degrees, and they proudly wear the label. They might call themselves Jacobins. There are other terms for them. And then to the left of the Jacobins, if you will, you actually have the full-on communists.
Yeah.
And even within the communists, you have communists like the Trotskyites, who are like, we need the workers' revolution to go global, all the way over to what we call the tankies, who are your hardcore Stalin did nothing wrong. Okay, all the people he murdered in the gulag had it coming, and we need more gulags. Wow. Okay, so you actually have this wide range, if you will, a spectrum on the left.
Yeah.
And the people who are calling
what is
for
the spectrum
violence,
on the right? Is there one, or are you aware of one, or are you just going to lump it together?
I think there is one, but that's not really the topic today, so I didn't even really think that through. I would argue that you have Republicans, again, more in the center with the Democrats. Then you have sort of your Christian conservatives, and then you have libertarians, and then you move. Although libertarians are kind of unique because libertarians also pull from the left. Well, for example, they're very pro drug legalization, pro sex work generally, things that people on the right would never touch.
Yeah.
And then you go further out, then you have, so libertarians, it's wrong to put libertarians, to pigeonhole them in a slot on the right, because that's not really where they belong. They kind of belong on opposite end of the triangle.
Hold on, Josh says something here. Is it a loop? I don't know if he's joking or not, but to the left of the communists are the folks like me who start coming back around. Does it loop?
Or well, it's more of a horseshoe from what I've seen. I don't think it ever.
Can you go so far right that you become left? Can you go so far left that you become right?
Well, you have anarchists, and I haven't mentioned anarchists. You have anarcho-capitalists on the extreme libertarian part. Again, the problem is when you view the political spectrum two-dimensionally, you get into these problems because politics is multi-directional. It's three-dimensional. It's not a two-dimensional thing. Michael here is saying libertarian is true right-wing, and I would consider Michael probably a libertarian from what I know of him. But, again, that's no true Scotsman fallacy going on there. He's saying we're the real right-wing, not the Republicans, who to him would be on the left. And so, everybody's jockeying for position, on that spectrum. Okay. Who am I to argue? Josh Gunderson is pointing out libertarian socialists and anarcho-syndicalists, and, anarcho-syndicalists are on the left. I can't pronounce the word very well. Libertarian socialists are also on the left, but they are a libertarian form of, if you will, socialist.
Gotcha.
So, again, the political spectrum is actually three-dimensional. On the far right, of course, you do have the hardcore fascists. Hitler did nothing wrong. In fact, his most praiseworthy act was the Holocaust and in the attempt to conquer the Soviet Union. And you're like, whoa, mind-blowing, right? Yeah. Much like Antifa, which is on the far right. That's your tankies. The people who will literally, if
Antifa on the far right?
I'm sorry, the far left. The far left. Yeah.
Whoa,
Antifa on
hold
the far
on.
left. Yeah, okay, left and right. I got my left and right mixed. Michael, I'm going to let Michael speak for himself. He says, I know plenty of jokes too. I'm not sure exactly what comment he's talking about, but obviously I said something that
he thought was a joke.
Yeah, that he thought was not quite spot on. I get that.
Yeah. So you were going somewhere with this. That
Yes.
where do you think the violent rhetoric is coming from? A very specific part of that spectrum.
It's coming from the people to the left of social democrats. Even though I'm a social democrat or a democratic socialist, there's actually a difference between the two, and it's very confusing. But also, I also share some of that rhetoric myself, as you've seen. That's part of what got under your skin, I think. So basically, when you get to the left of progressives, you get into the social democrats, but really it's more the communists and the socialists and the Antifa. The extreme left is where you're getting the call for violence. And the reason is this. Democratic socialists like myself, we're still capitalists. We still believe that capitalism has value. To me, capitalism is in this. Pay attention, because this is the only time you're going to hear me defend capitalism in any measure.
Hit record.
Yeah, capitalism is a powerful economic engine. It is extraordinarily efficient. It is by far the most efficient economic system devised by humanity.
Click. I stopped record, and I'm going to play that as our promo for the next spot.
However, it is also sociopathic. So you need to put some.
I'm cutting that part out.
Boundaries on capitalism, so that it's not what I've referred to in the past as unfettered capitalism. You have to kind of put chains on it. It's like a beast. And if you can direct the beast to plow the field, that's fine. But if you unchain the beast and it runs wild through the village, well, it's going to destroy the village. And so I think it's a powerful economic engine. And I'm in favor of people going out and doing work. And I'm okay with people actually getting rich, although I'm kind of opposed to the idea of billionaires. Up to a point, you know. The thing is, the left argues that capitalism is inherently violent. And we've mentioned this before. And the reason is this. Capitalism, like I explained last night, is simply this. And I know Michael's going to take offense to this definition. But capitalism is corporations have a fiduciary responsibility to generate profits, which they must then pass on to shareholders, who can then trade the shares. And that's it. Now, that capitalism was developed in the 17th century by the Dutch. And your first corporation was the Dutch East India Company. And it was done because they were bringing back all of these spices and other valuables from Asia, you know, and around the world. And they were bringing these back to Europe. And what they realized was no individual has the money to finance an expedition, but if we all pool our resources, we can finance an expedition and we share the profits. And it was a very simple organization, a simple agreement, but it worked, and the people who bought in, who got in on the ground floor, became fabulously wealthy. And people realized this model can be applied to just about anything. Until today, it's the dominant business model in the world. You know, even sole proprietorships are incorporated because you get the benefits of incorporation, which, you know, now is this whole legal thing in the United States and around the world.
Yeah.
The problem with capitalism, though, is it makes no allowance for the human individual or the well-being of the human individual. And when profits conflict with human basic needs, profits win all the time, unless there is a law on the books that restricts that. In the United States, we have a lot of laws.
Yeah.
You've talked yourself about warning labels on extension cords. That's because of the law. But there are other parts of the world where those laws don't exist, and we see very consistently, we see capitalism trumping human basic needs all the time. But even here in the United States, capitalism also argues that we don't have money to spend on things like healthcare, which people are dying all the time because our healthcare is the most expensive on the planet.
Again,
yet we have
horrible
outcomes.
I'm going to stop you right there, though, because I don't think most of the people object to healthcare because of the costs. I think they object to the idea of universal healthcare on the basis of principle of what it means as a right and stuff, but not as cost.
Well,
I think that's either a straw man or whatever. I don't think that that's why most people. That's not. I don't object to universal health care because of the cost. And I know that there's a lot of people who I object to it on the idea of control. That whoever controls that has control over the people, and I don't want the government to have the sole control over what can be done with my health.
Well,
So that's and I believe that's where most people on the right stand, is they'll use the cost as the argument because that's the easiest, cheapest, low hanging fruit to argue. Well, we just can't afford it. I think
a lot of people make that objection.
They make that objection but I think it's the low hanging fruit of the reason, but that's not why they believe it.
It's normal around the world, and it's actually cheaper than the system we have here by far. It's substantially cheaper. So the whole money issue is really a non-starter for most people.
And that's why I don't, that's not the reason why. And I don't believe that is the reason why most people object to it. When you look at the arguments of the right, the money is the first one that they go to because it's the low hanging fruit and it's easy to say. But I believe the reason for that particular issue is the control that government has over people's lives when they control the health.
But
healthcare.
This is a normal level of control, if you will, that governments have around the world, yet we don't see tyrannical regimes in places like Canada or Mexico or England or Scotland or France or Italy or any of these other countries or Japan or anywhere where universal healthcare is the norm. In fact, universal healthcare is the norm around the world. And we see all kinds of governments. We see some governments that are fairly liberal, and we see some governments that are fascist or dictatorships even. But in both, you get access to universal healthcare. And in fact, on the left, they argue that it's violent specifically because if you don't have money to afford things like your insulin, you die. So in other words, our healthcare policy in the United States is literally killing people. The fact that healthcare is yes, it is.
Not literally. No. It's not literally.
What do you want to call it when you can't afford your medication so you die? What do you call that?
Everybody dies.
But when you die because
when
you
you're
need
saying
a medication,
when you're claiming that something is literally killing you, you're saying that something is going out of the way to take your life before it's due.
So how do you want to characterize this? Okay, fine. I'll concede that to you, but I want you to characterize this for me then. How do you characterize it when the price of insulin jumps up from a few tens of dollars for a bottle to over $700 a bottle? A person can no longer afford their insulin, and as a result, they pass away. Or they're rationing their medication, and again, they pass away because they're not getting an adequate dose. How do you characterize that?
People die.
That's not okay, Scott.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying people die. There are diseases that people die of. There are natural causes that people die of. If you can get medication to stop that, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about, doing that. But if you don't get that medication, nobody's murdering you. Nobody's killing you. You are dying of natural causes. But nobody's taking action to kill you. That's the difference. You will eventually die. Doesn't matter what it is. Somehow you will eventually die. Somehow. Does that mean somebody killed you because, hey, my heart has failed. I'm 80 years old. My heart has failed and I can't afford the $150,000, whatever it is, for somebody to put a new heart in me. Does that mean that person killed me? Or my heart failed? People die. You can't say that person not giving you that. You can't say that person killed you. You can say that person killed you if they took a knife and cut your throat. That's killing someone. If they took a gun and blew your head off, that's killing someone. But if you're naturally dying, if your body is giving out, that something inside your body not caused by anybody else is failing, and you can't get what can heal you, I understand that's tragic, but that person's not killing you. Again, I want to, words matter. If you can change the argument to say that person is now killing you, now you can start doing all kinds of stuff to that person because you're claiming that they're killing people. And you can justify all kinds of violent action against that person because you're changing the definition of what killing is.
So how would you feel? And I want you to think about this just from a feelings perspective.
It doesn't matter how I feel. I deal with facts. But it
does matter because...
It does not matter. I'm going to deal with the facts.
You may run into... You're a young man still, Scott, but at some point in the next few decades, God forbid, you may run into a situation where somebody is making an economic decision, a profit-based decision that costs the life of yourself or someone you love. Is that ethical? Is that moral? Are you okay with that?
If they didn't actively do something to kill my loved one, they didn't kill them. They didn't kill them.
So you are okay with somebody raising the price of a medication beyond what the average person or a poor person can afford and allowing that poor person to pass away. You're okay with that policy?
What's creating that policy?
Capitalism.
No, what's creating that policy is, maybe it is capitalism. I'm saying what's creating that policy is insurance companies that have big pockets. So now I am no longer the one who has to pay for it. They can raise the prices because the insurance company can pay for it. That's a problem. But if I have an insurance company paying for it for me, then the insurance company is paying for it for me, and I am getting it.
Unless you know, for whatever reason, the insurance company can then, you know, and
then
again,
I'll get a different insurance company.
Well,
I'll pay a different insurance company, which I won't have the option to do if the insurance company was the government. I'd be stuck with one.
Yeah, but it would never drop you from coverage, though.
Oh, yeah, it would.
Insurance companies used to do. Now, thanks to Obamacare, they technically can't. But then, you know, you get into this whole thing and they want to, you know, bring back things like they do want to reject people. They do want to drop people. And, of course, insurance costs are through the roof, and they continue to go up every year. And it's getting to the point now, again, where people at the bottom simply can't afford insurance, even with subsidies. Even myself, I have put off picking up prescription medication or going to the doctor because I know it's going to incur a charge that I am not prepared to handle until, you know, for me, you know, sometimes I have to wait a week or two. Other people, however, when you are on life-saving prescription medication and your copay is in the hundreds of dollars and your deductible, your annual deductible is in the thousands.
But when does life-saving become the responsibility of that person?
I think
when is it that person's fault that your body failed? Your body is failing you, not that person. Your body is failing you.
All I'm saying
How is that person responsible for your body failing?
I don't think cancer should be a death sentence for a person. And I don't think that being poor should be a death sentence. And when you combine cancer with poverty, it's oftentimes a death sentence for many people. And I simply have an issue with that as a human being. From an empathy perspective.
Tell that to Steve Jobs.
I have an issue.
Tell that to Steve Jobs.
Okay, we can't save everyone. He had pancreatic cancer, which is all 100% fatal.
Cancer kills.
You know,
your
not
body
every
fails
cancer,
you.
but there are people who have conditions that can be treated, such as diabetes, and again, they are dying simply because they can't afford their medication. And I have a massive ethical problem with this. Insulin, in particular, was sold. The rights to it were sold for $1 when it was invented. The purpose. The people who invented insulin specifically wanted to put this in the hands of people who needed it without somebody making profit over it. But today, pharmaceutical companies have cornered the rights to produce the insulin.
What do you mean cornered the rights?
They alone are able to produce insulin.
Why?
Because that's how the laws are written.
No. The laws, you have that in proof? That there's patent laws that are saying they're the only ones who can produce it?
Yes. Nobody is producing insulin for free. Nobody is producing it at cost and giving it to people at cost.
But I'm saying, what is the legal limit of that? Like, what is the legal limitation of that? Or is it that they are the ones who can afford to produce it and other people don't? Are you saying there's actual laws that only these companies can produce it because they hold a patent on insulin production?
I would imagine that, but I don't know for sure. But the fact is, Josh Gunderson is saying they deliberately reformulated it to get a new patent.
Okay, so then somebody can still make the old one.
But nobody is. And the fact is the people who are capable of producing it are now capable of selling it for a very high price. Why would they give it away for free? Because remember, capitalism doesn't care about ethics or humanity. It cares about profit. Why would anyone enter the market for humanitarian or charitable purposes? Nobody's going to do it.
People have done it.
When? I'm not aware of any
hospitals started from churches.
Yeah. And
that was people nonprofit doing that.
There.
Okay, that's cool.
Get back there.
But you're saying it's never been done. I'm telling you, all hospitals started that way. It was done. That's how it was started.
I understand that. Hospitals used to be charitable enterprises, as did a lot of our healthcare. But today, under capitalism, it has become a free market, free for all, if you will, where people's illnesses, people are turned into profit centers because they're sick. You should not go bankrupt because you have the misfortune of getting sick.
Why not?
Because it could happen to any of us. And from an empathy perspective, I don't want that to happen to me.
Okay.
I don't want to see that happen to you. I don't want you to have to do a GoFundMe to pay for basic medication.
Why not?
If you go to Las Vegas and you gamble away all your money and blow it, Scott, you made a choice. You're a big boy. But Scott, if you catch some sort of terrible illness and the only way to save your life is $1 million operation, but the means are there, I want you to have that operation.
But why is that?
You shouldn't have to beg.
But why is it their responsibility to save my life?
Because
why is it their fiscal responsibility?
Great question.
Why?
Mm-hmm.
How? That's what you have not been able to prove. Why is it their responsibility to save my life? Where is the legal responsibility for them to step in?
We live in a society where any of these things could happen to any one of us.
Mm-hmm.
And on the basis of empathy alone, I don't want it to happen to me. I'm not going to let it happen to you.
But what's the legal reason? How is it legal that they are responsible for my life?
In the status quo, it's not. But I'm arguing we need to change that.
Why? Why should it be somebody else's responsibility? Doesn't matter. Why should it be
to you?
Why should it be someone else's responsibility? Why should your life be someone else's responsibility?
Because we live in a society. It only works if we work together. But there's a small group of people called the rentier class collectively. And the rentiers, the people who make money simply by owning stuff and producing nothing, the rentiers are cashing in. They're taking advantage of the society.
Mm-hmm.
And they are cashing in and getting rich off our misfortune and our illnesses.
And Josh, I think you got me on that question. Ask yourself the same thing about national security. I think Josh is making the implication of why is it somebody else's responsibility to make sure that you're safe? And I'm saying exactly right. These people are volunteering and choosing to join a military force that is protecting me. They are choosing to make that choice, to be part of something that is supposed to, they are volunteering their life. That's why I put so much weight and so much honor on people who choose to serve in the military, because they are laying down their life. They are making their choice to lay down their life to do something sacrificially for the benefit of others. And they are choosing to do that.
What about my taxes, though? Should my taxes go to something that I morally object to, which is war?
My taxes go to pay for abortion, so yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. So why not healthcare? We spend so much to take life, or to be prepared to take life, at the drop of a hat, at the push of a button around the globe.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't spend the same effort and energy to preserve life here at home, which is ludicrous to me. I think it's backwards. I understand we need a military. I understand we have enemies. I understand that terrorism is a thing. There are occasions when we're going to have to push a button. I get that. We need volunteers to stand guard. We all watched A Few Good Men. We heard, the monologue at the end. We get that. However, why aren't we making a similar effort when it comes to our health and our well-being, our infrastructure, our schools, our society? This is our everyday world.
Right, but because it's our everyday world, because it impacts us so individually, putting the government in control of a system that impacts you as an individual, that's way more than what's happening with the military. The military is taking care of things that are around, but it's not coming into your life individually and saying, you can do this, you can't do this, this is how much it's going to cost, here's what you're going to get, here's what you're not going to be able to do. I mean, they'll go ahead and say, you can keep smoking. We're going to cure your lung cancer, and you just keep smoking? Or are they going to say, hey, that's too expensive, you can't smoke if you're going to get lung cancer?
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to play out, but they
have the power to do that
around the world.
But they have the power to do that.
And people still smoke around the world.
And they are answering those questions.
But people also have better health outcomes all around the globe.
Yes, Josh, I am my brother's keeper. That's why I choose to do something. That's why I go out of my way. It is not your brother's keeper argument when it's the government forcing it on you. No, that's not what that's not the brother's keeper.
But I do think as a society, we have to band together, and we literally, in a way, we have to rebel against the rentier class, because the rentier class is cashing in on us.
Yeah.
And in a way, I think that is a form of violence. It may not be this direct violence that you argue it's not, but to me, it is. Perhaps it's sort of like hard power versus soft power.
Mm-hmm.
Hard power is with a gun or a knife, someone threatening you. Soft power is a lot more subtle.
Yeah, it's a way to justify your hard power. You can claim they have soft power, so it justifies your hard power.
But it's actually a thing.
But it's a thing that anybody else can claim. It's a thing that anybody else can claim.
But at some point, we have to do something. We are headed back to the Middle Ages.
At the point that it is actually becoming violent, that it's direct violence to you. That's when you have to defend yourself. Before then, it is simply, I'm going to take this preemptive strike, unless you're saying that's a justifiable thing, making a preemptive strike against someone based on what you think they're going to do. I don't believe in preemptive strikes.
Do you believe?
I believe in being. See, a preemptive strike is by a person who's afraid of what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I'm not afraid of
a terrorist.
Well, no. What I'm saying is, if there's somebody, and this situation literally faced me as we had a drunken, crazy person come on our campus and try to walk around through our school, and I was the only person here. We had to go and face this person. I said, "Hey, we have a school here. We're gonna need to ask you to step over to the sidewalk. You can't be on the ground." And this person's like, "I'm gonna." You could tell he was drunk. He was out, but he was making physical threats to me. He said, "I'm gonna beat you. I'm gonna kick your," all this stuff. And I'm sitting here going, I know that I can stop him. I know that I have been physically trained to stop him, and I don't have. He's not going to get a punch on me, and I will get him to the ground. So I don't have to preemptively take him down right now. I have the knowledge and the ability to wait and say, I don't care what your words say. I don't care what you're saying to me. I'm just going to keep, the other person was calling the police. We're calling the police. I'm going to ask you, I'm just going to keep calmly asking you. I can stay calm and ask you, and I can ignore all the things you're saying, because I know if you take a punch at me, I can defend myself. So I don't have to preemptively attack you. I'm trained and I can wait for you to make the first move, and then I'll take action. But I am not going to take action preemptively as a coward. I am not going to say, I'm afraid this person might hit me, so I'm going to hit him first. He's saying he's going to hit me. He's threatening to hit me. He's cussing me out. He's saying he's going to kick my butt, but that doesn't give me the right to now take him down.
Well, I'm going to under fighting words.
No, that doesn't give me the right.
So how long should the frog stay in the hot water before it's boiling? When should the frog jump out?
That's a total false analogy.
Well, because this is the situation that we're in, where the rentier class continues to jack up the prices of medications. Healthcare is becoming increasingly unaffordable in spite of the poorly named Affordable Care Act. Mm-hmm. What should we do as a nation of people who develop health problems, especially in our old age? What should we do?
Sorry, Josh, those are not preemptive strikes. Those are retaliation. You're obviously ignoring all the rockets that are fired into Israel on a regular basis. So shame on you, honestly, Josh.
Okay. Well, I think we're out of time. Denise is going to be coming on.
Yeah, she's coming on in a few minutes. But that's my thing. My whole thing is that cowards are going to preemptively strike because they're afraid of what's going to happen. Don't be a coward. Don't preemptively strike based on the person's words. Be ready to defend yourself if you have to against violent action, but don't take violent action preemptively against somebody's words. That's unethical. That's wrong, and that's cowardly. Wow. That's my basis, and that's what I live by, and that's literally what I live by, and that's what I did. I'm not going to preemptively strike someone because of their words.
Well, I don't think things are quite so black and white. I think they're a lot more gray. I think that soft power is an actual thing,
and that justifies hard power. Good job. You get to justify your violence.
Well, hard power exists for a reason, and I think you'd agree with that. And maybe that's what we need to do. I don't know, but
I've been to Israel. I've seen the attacks. Josh, have you? I'm sorry, but I've been to Israel and I've seen the attacks.
All right, we'll let you guys hash that out in the comments. Thank you for watching. We're going to see you folks on Sunday. What are we doing on Sunday? We're talking about.
Tell them what we're talking about.
We're going to talk about
systemic racism
versus
and racism. This topic that you were coming on, but basically the hijacking the definition of racism is what I'm talking about. So addressing that, but you can catch us 5 o'clock on Sundays, 4 o'clock on Mondays, right here, kerncast.com. You can catch us A Valid Answer, or Kerncast on Facebook. But until next time,
all right, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. See you guys.
Thank you.